avoid those negative effects, we have to come up with a way or finding a solution to that disagreement. We need to make peace. We need to avoid that argument. We need to stop that opposition. So in other words, we need to put an end to a conflict. And the process of putting an end to a conflict is what we call conflict resolution, which is what we're discussing today, but basically going down to our relationship with our parents, because two people cannot stay together without conflicts. So one of the things you learned in the other session is that conflicts are part of life. Conflicts are part of life. We cannot avoid conflicts. They'll always be there. Why? Because we are created differently. We have different characteristics. We think differently. We act differently. And therefore, because of those differences, we'll always collide with one another, and especially the people we relate to or the people who are close to us. And if I ask you, how many of you feel totally misunderstood by your parents? I'm sure the answer would be all of you. Because at this age, especially as a teenager, one of the things that you will feel as you continue relating with your parents is that they don't understand you. They don't understand what you want. They don't understand what you need. They don't understand what you like, what you don't like. They don't understand your interests, your hobbies, your goals, or they don't seem to appreciate anything that you do. So all of us, in one way or another, feel misunderstood by our parents. So we're going to look at what are the causes of those that misunderstanding. What brings about that misunderstanding? Why do we feel misunderstood? And what can we do to be understood? And that is what we're going to be discussing today. And there are so many conflicts you faced. Could be conflicts related to your clothing or dress code. Could be conflicts related to your performance in school. Could be conflicts related to how you relate with your siblings. Your brother wants this or wants the other thing. You want this or the other thing. And so you quarrel. And so in one way or another, you have actually faced so many kinds of conflicts. And the question is, how did you resolve them? And do you think that you used the right? Do you think that you used the right method to solve that conflict? So we are going to learn conflict resolution methods, ways we can use to resolve conflicts properly so that they don't escalate into something that is negative, all right? And conflicts occur at different levels. It could be at an individual level. That is a conflict within yourself. It could be at family level, you and your siblings, your brothers, your sisters, you and your neighbors or your friends. It could be between teams or groups in school. And you've had also cases of where schools are actually competing with one another, especially when it comes to matters of sports, matters like music festivals and drama festivals. You've seen schools actually developing rivalry with one another. And sometimes even during closing days, and if two schools happen to meet each other on the closing day, maybe at a matatu stage, you've seen especially boys' schools, some can actually end up in a fist fight, all because of a disagreement or rivalry over sports or competition for one thing or another, be it in music or in some other kind of thing. There are also conflicts that involve countries. And right now, I'm sure if you're following the news, you've heard of those conflicts between maybe the Chief Justice and the President or the Parliament. The Chief Justice suggesting this, then the MPs are suggesting something different, and politicians are also quarreling and disagreeing on one thing or another. So conflicts appear at different levels. But what we're going to focus on in this session is the family conflicts between you and your siblings, and especially your parents, and how we are going to resolve them. So in the last session, I'm sure you also looked at the stages of conflict resolution, stages of the process where a conflict starts as something small. That is what we call the latent conflict. It is important to note that a conflict, we are always in conflict. As I've said, conflicts are part of life. So we are always in conflict, even within ourselves, because we have what we call intrapersonal conflicts or internal conflicts. That is a conflict within yourself. Remember, as a human being, you are created in the image of God, which therefore means that you are three in one, just like God is the Holy Trinity. That is three in one: God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. As a human being, you also follow that same image. And because of that, there is always conflict between you and yourself. That is your body, your mind, and your spirit or your soul. Those are the three parts of you, or the three components that make you as a person. There is the physical part of you, that is your body. There is the spiritual part of you, your soul. And then there's the mental part of you, that is your mind. And sometimes what your mind thinks is not what your body feels. And that's why sometimes you feel you have a conflict within yourself, because the body wants this, but your heart says something different, or your mind tells you that is wrong, but your body desires to do the wrong thing. Your body desires to do what is not right, but your mind and your soul will sometimes tell you no. So you'll feel that your conscience is judging you. That is a conflict within yourself. It's what we call an internal conflict. And so we are all at one time or another in conflict even within ourselves. And at that phase, we call that latent conflict. It's a conflict that is within you. You are arguing, do I do, do I not? Do I say, do I not? Do I do this or not? Do I say it like this or not? Especially when you've disagreed with someone, one of the questions you ask yourself, should I apologize if I'm wrong, or I feel I'm not wrong? Why should I apologize? So you have a conflict within yourself. You are arguing within yourself. Why should I apologize first, yet it's this person who wronged me? Why should I say sorry? They're not even apologetic, yet they have wronged me, they've hurt me. So that's a conflict within yourself. At that stage, that conflict is at the latent stage, where it is just within you. But after some time, you feel the need to tell the other person how you feel. You feel the need to express what you're feeling. And so you might walk to the person and actually ask them, kwa nini ulinifanyia hivyo? Whether it's your brother, your sister, your friend, kwa nini ulinifanyia hivyo? Unajua ulinikosea sana. Do you know how I feel about this? So at that stage, a conflict is emerging, because now the other person is now engaged, and they're now starting to look at it either from their own point of view or from your own point of view. And what you're seeking at this stage is to understand their point of view. And then the conflict escalates into something serious. You can start arguing, you can raise your voices. Some people might start name calling. You've heard people abusing each other, and you've also seen politicians doing the same in the news. While they're abusing each other, at that stage where you hear somebody saying something bad about the other or to the other person, that is what we call an escalated conflict. That is the escalation stage, where now a conflict is rising. Tempers are rising, emotions are rising, and people are losing reason. And then eventually, because of the name calling, because of the abuses, because of the shouting and the screaming, people feel hurt. And that is now the stalemate, the peak of a conflict, where now everybody feels hurt. Everybody feels ungeniambia hivyo, hata kama nimekukosea, usiniambie hivyo, hebu niambie vizuri, ungeniongelesha vizuri, ningekuexplainia. So everybody feels hurt. That's a stalemate. And it is at that point that we actually need to think of resolving that conflict. Because if we don't, then a relationship is broken. That relationship could be between you and your parents, it could be between you and your best friend, you and your brother or your sister or any other relative. And you've seen in families where people don't even talk for a week, they don't talk for months, they meet at a family gathering, and there are people who are not even greeting each other. That means they're at the stalemate stage, where now everybody feels hurt and nobody wants to admit that they are wrong, and some people don't even want to express that they are hurt. So that is a stalemate. So at that point, we actually need to de-escalate. So what we are going to be studying today is now the process of bringing these tempers down, according to this graph here. Now we want to bring everybody down, whether it is you and your parents, you and your sibling. Now we want to de-escalate. We want to bring some negotiation skills. We want to bring some arbitration. We want to bring some mediation, so that actually these tempers calm down, these emotions go down, and actually we restore the relationship. we restore the friendship between you and your siblings, between you and your parents. And then eventually we'll settle the disputes and post-conflict peace building. That means now everything is okay. Our relationship has been saved and we are now at peace with one another. So what we're going to be studying is this last part of our graph here, the de-escalation, the negotiation, the conflict resolution. So after people have hurt each other, after people have wronged each other, what can we do? What methods can we use to actually de-escalate and restore our relationship with one another? So that is the process of conflict resolution graphically, or using an image. And you can see that it varies with intensity and time according to my diagram here. Intensity meaning as you're rising from the beginning here, emotions are rising, people are raising even their voices and they're not listening to each other. And then eventually people are hurt. That is the peak, the hurting stage or the stalemate. So that all that happens with time. This conflict begins within yourself. Kwa nini mama ananichukia hivyo? Kwa nini mama anapendelea bro ama sis akifanya hivi akeleleshwi na mimi nikifanya tu kitu kidogo napigiwa kelele. So that's a latent conflict. And then eventually you start maybe talking now to your sister or your brother badly. It means the conflict is escalating or starting kuonyesha madharau. Hiyo conflict inaanza kupanda and eventually there will be a stalemate where you're not seeing eye to eye. So we want to see how do we resolve? How do we de-escalate? So which is the opposite of escalation, where we are raising tempers, raising voices, increasing abuses, name calling and all those things. So how do we resolve that? So like I said, conflicts happen at various levels. And one of the conflicts that you can remember if you were born is the post-election violence. Post-election violence, where people were fighting, people burned houses, and so on and so forth. And then eventually that conflict had to be resolved. And all of you are aware of the handshake because you hear this in the news all the time, the handshake between His Excellency the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Raila Odinga. And now they are friends, they are working together, which means they have de-escalated the tempers. At one stage, they were calling each other names. At one stage, they were raising voices and abusing one another in the media. And their followers were fighting each other, as you can see in this diagram here, burning tires, burning houses, and so on and so forth. But eventually, peace was restored when they shook hands. It means that they came to an agreement after disagreeing for so long. They had to agree. So that's how basically we resolve conflicts. So let us now go down to basically what I needed to discuss in this session. And that is now the conflict between us and our parents. We are teenagers. We have needs. We have wants. We have likes. We have dislikes. We have things that our parents don't understand. And that's why sometimes we feel misunderstood, because sometimes you feel that what you want is right, but your parent thinks otherwise. So what are some of the things that cause us to fight with our parents, especially? One of the things that we fight about is technology. And I'm sure some of you are lucky if you're using either your parents' phone even to join this meeting. And maybe probably that is the only time you have access to their phone or their laptop or any other gadget, electronic gadget in the house. So you should thank them for that. But one of the things you will conflict about is technology, from mobile phones to the use of the internet, what you access on the internet, what kind of music you want to listen to, what kind of movies you want to watch. So you will keep quarreling and disagreeing on this. Something comes on TV, there is a show that you want to follow up, probably a soap, but they are thinking of watching something else. There is a movie that you want to watch, a series, either on Netflix or on YouTube or wherever, on whichever other platform. But your parent wants something else, different. They want to watch the news. And you're thinking, this is news. What is interesting about news? But to them, news is very important. To you, news is irrelevant. In fact, anything you want to hear in the news ni kama shule zinafunguliwa ama zifunguliwi. That's all you want to know. Anything else is irrelevant. About who is the Chief Justice writing letters to, that is irrelevant to you. What is the letter about? That is relevant to you. But your parents, that means a lot to them. So we'll find ourselves in quarrels with them over technology, our mobile phones, the electronic devices in the house, and how we use the internet. The other cause of conflict is movement, especially with this COVID-19, the pandemic. Since the pandemic, all of you, if you had a curfew before imposed by your parents, now the curfew was doubled because Mutahi Kagwe also pronounced a curfew, the president pronounced a curfew, and your parents also had their own curfew about what time you should be at home, who you can or cannot visit, and at what time. So there are those restrictions of movement. You feel like your freedom of movement has been interfered with. You want to move freely, to hang out with your friends, to visit anybody that you'd like to visit, but your parents will always want to control where you go, what time you go, and what time you come back. So that is another cause of conflict. Your need for freedom, your need for freedom of movement. Parents will restrict you while you want freedom. So that's a conflict. That's a disagreement. It's a war. You want to go out, they think you shouldn't go out. You think you are safe and you know what you are doing, they think you don't know what you are doing and you're not safe. So that will all obviously result into a conflict. The other thing that you'll keep arguing with your parents about is your freedom of association. In other words, who are your friends? Who should you associate with? And what kind of friends are you hanging around with? So there are people that you like and you like hanging around with, but your parents will keep complaining, huyu rafiki yako huyu ana tabia mzuri. Nini huwa mnaambiana na yeye? Anakusaidia na nini? So they will always have a say in who you associate with, because their fear is that your friends might be immoral or they might be the wrong company. And you've all heard the saying that wrong company corrupts good morals, right? So that's why your parents will always want to control who you hang out with, who visits you, and who can you visit. And at school, they also want to know who your friends are. They want to know what position they were in class, so that they know nani anaongeza ujinga kwa mwingine. And you'll hear some parents saying something like that. Nani anasaidia mwingine hapa, nani anapotosha mwingine hapa. And you hear them talking about negative peer pressure, which is a topic for another day or a topic you've also had before. So one of the fears of the parent is that your friends will mislead you. But to you, you think that your friends are cool. They're good people because you understand them. It is not, it is just that your parents don't understand them. So that is where the conflict comes in. The other thing that you'll conflict about is communication. The way you communicate, the way you say things. You see, as you grow, you start developing your own personality. When you are young, maybe 2, 3, 4 years old, your parents could actually communicate to you and give directions to you, and they expect those directions to be followed. But as you grow into a teenager and you reach the age 12, 13, 14, which is where a majority of you are, you start questioning some instructions. You start questioning some commands. You start questioning some rules. And because of that, your parents will feel like you are disobeying them, or you're being rude, or you're being arrogant, or you've become rebellious. But actually what is happening is you are developing your own personality, you're developing your own way of thinking and reasoning. And that is why you are asking questions and questioning some rules that you've always followed. You've always followed when they tell you don't do this or do this. But then you wake up one day and they tell you don't do this, and you ask why. They tell you you should not visit so and so, and you ask why. Or don't hang out with so and so, and you ask why. And what does your parent hear? Your parent hears rebellion. Your parent hears, oh, kumbe umeanza kumea pembe, unataka kuniuliza maswali sasa, unataka kunionyesha umekuwa, So that will result into a conflict because you are misunderstanding each other as far as your communication is concerned. And sometimes also you might want to talk, not to talk too much. As you develop into a teenager, one of the things you do is develop your own, you want your own space. You want to be in your own room. You want to hang around your peers and not your parents. So sometimes your parents don't get why you're not talking to them, and they feel maybe you are mad at them, and they'll keep asking you, uko sawa? And they say, yeah, niko sawa. And then you're wondering, kwani, what's wrong? See, I'm just okay. I just don't feel like talking. So that will lead to communication breakdown because you don't understand each other. The other thing you conflict about is career path, or what you call career choices. For those of you who are in high school, one of the things you are doing, especially when you reach Form 2, is trying to figure out which subjects to pick, which subjects to drop. And as you're doing that, you are actually doing that in line with your careers. What do you want to be in future? Sometimes your parents have a rough idea, or they think they have a rough idea of what path you should follow. They feel that they know what you need to do when you grow up, what kind of job you should do. So some of them have already told you, wewe nikikuangalia hivi, naona lawyer. Mwingine akikuangalia hivi, anaona askari. Mwingine akikuangalia hivi, anaona engineer. But wewe na physics hampatani. But dada akikuangalia, anaona a fully fledged engineer in the making. Wewe na chemistry na biology hampatani. But mama akikuangalia hivi, anaona a doctor, anaona a nurse. So that will lead to conflicts. Because maybe you just want to be an artist, or you just want to be a musician, but they think that is not a good career for you. That is not what you should pursue. And so one of the conflicts you'll have, if you've not had it already, is your career choices, especially the choice of subjects in school, in high school, and then choice of careers and choice of universities once you finish Form 4, and they'll want to have a say in what you do. But you want to do one thing, they want you to do another thing. So you will disagree on that. So we are going to find out how will you navigate that when it comes to that. Or if you've already disagreed, how can you make them see your point of view without sounding rude, without sounding arrogant, and without looking like you are rebelling against them. The other thing you will argue about is fashion sense. Of course, our parents, we think that our parents are outdated. They don't know what the in thing is, especially when it comes to dress code, when it comes to grooming, the hairstyle, the kind of hairstyles that we want. If you're a boy, you want to shave in a certain way, but dad looks at you and tells you, my friend, utanyoa kama mwanafunzi. Hapa kwa nyumba yangu hakuna dreadlocks, kwa nyumba yangu hakuna kushave in a certain way. So they will want to control the way you look, because by extent, according to your parents, how you look reflects on them. As in, when you're walking out there, you're actually representing their image. So they want you to look a certain way. And when you look a different way from what they want, they feel like unatuaibisha. They don't get why you should buy a new trouser that is torn, and yet it's new and it's expensive. They don't get it. Wao unaona hiyo ni fashion, kwao huo ni upuzi. Kwa nini unanunua nguo ambayo imeraruka? So ununue nguo mzuri. They don't get why you want that short dress or that tight dress. They don't get it. So you will keep conflicting about these things unless you learn how to actually communicate and actually understand where they're coming from so that you avoid the conflict. Another thing is expectations on academic performance. Your parents want you to succeed in your academics. Your parent wants you to pass. Your parent wants an A as a grade. If you are in primary school, anataka upite KCPE with flying colors. Ukifika high school, anataka upite KCSE with flying colors. If you go to campus, they want you to have a distinction, all right? So they have these high expectations of you. And sometimes because of those high expectations, you as a student will feel very pressured. And one of the things you will suffer is stress, because you feel your parents are asking for too much from you. You think that, well, ukipata C+, umejikaza sana in high school as a main grade. Lakini wao wakiangalia C+, they think you should have an A. Ukianguka sana, A-. So you will keep conflicting about that. So it's upon you to learn how to negotiate and try to show them how much you've worked to attain what you've attained, and what you are doing in order to actually reach where they expect you to reach. And that's all about communication, which will eventually resolve that conflict. The other thing is duties and responsibilities. I'm sure now that you've been at home, if you are lucky enough, then your parents have maybe a house help and they assist you to do some house chores. But most times you will have to help the house help, or if there's no house help, you'll actually have to do these things yourselves and with your siblings. So you might argue with your siblings about who should do what. Jana ni mimi niliosha vyombo, kwa nini leo wewe uoshi? Ama siku yako ikifika ya kuosha vyombo ndio unasema uko na headache. And especially for the girls, you know what I'm talking about. So siku ya sister yako ikuosha vyombo ikifika siku hiyo ndio anaamua sasa atalala mpaka saa 7, anaumwa na tumbo. Wewe siku yako unaosha, siku yake pia unaosha. That will result into a conflict between the two of you, and also between you and the parents, because sometimes the parents will understand your sister or your brother, but you feel they are not understanding you, and they're not getting the fact you're also getting tired. So you will also conflict on who should do what. Boys will sometimes conflict on what duties they need to do. Ukifika teenager, ukiambiwa uoshe vyombo, as a boy you feel, oh, my sister should be the one doing that. Mimi niambie niosha gari or nifanya kazi nyingine. Hiyo ya kuosha vyombo hapana. So you will conflict about what duties and responsibilities should you undertake at home. Another thing is time management. What time should you wake up? What time should you sleep? And you see, with this period that you've been at home for too long, one of the things that has happened is that you've lost track of time. You want to sleep till late, all right? So you want to sleep at 3 a.m. and then wake up at 10 a.m. Your time yote between 7 p.m. and 3 a.m. you want to watch your series, you want to watch movies, and you want to be on your phone, maybe chatting with your friends. And your parents will not approve of that because they think you are wasting valuable time. You should wake up at this time and maybe study, then start helping with the house chores. But you, on the other hand, think you can have your own timetable. You can create time for what you want, but you'll always conflict because of time. The other very important thing is absentee parents. When you feel like your parents sometimes don't have time for you, especially when they are too busy and you understand that they work hard, and they'll tell you they are working hard for you. So they wake up very early, they leave, come back very late, and sometimes you just want to see them, sometimes you miss them, sometimes you have stuff to tell them, but because they are not there, you feel like they don't care about you. But to them, they feel when we go to work and work hard and get money, we are showing care for our daughter, we are showing care for our son, because that is the only way we'll get food to feed her. That's how we're going to pay this rent so that she has shelter. That's how we're going to get school fees so that she can go back to school next term, and so on and so forth. So they think by working hard and by being away from you, they're actually doing what they should do to show their care. Your interpretation of that is, my parents don't care. They never have enough time for me. They never come for visiting days. They never remember my birthday. So you feel like they're absent in your life. And so that will always result into a conflict. Then there are disagreements or conflicts between parents. And sometimes this might escalate and you become part of the conflict, especially if you take sides. For example, your parent, just like we are saying conflict is a part of life, your parents or your guardians will sometimes have a conflict, have a disagreement about one thing or another. Now, when you take sides and start thinking that dad is wrong, mom is right, or mom is right, dad is wrong. So when you start taking sides, you become part of the conflict. And whatever negative emotions that one of them carry for each other, they also become contagious. You are also affected by the same, and therefore you become part of the conflict. You start feeling negative emotions about one of them, whoever you think is wrong, and the other one is right, and you take the side of the other. So you will start being rude to the parent that you think is wrong. You become arrogant, and sometimes you actually start talking ill about your father or your mother. And eventually, when they notice this behavior about you, that will result into a conflict between you and the parent, because now you are taking sides and you are engaging in a conflict that is not yours. And finally, another common thing where you will find yourself disagreeing with your parents is when they compare you with your siblings. You keep hearing your parents saying, why can't you be like your brother? Why can't you be like your sister? In fact, your younger sister is more responsible than you. You are in high school, she's in time to study. Wewe kazi yako ni hapa tu, simu, movies. So when you're being compared, you feel like, kwani mimi si mtoto wenu? Don't have a right to do what pleases my heart. Why are you always comparing me with so and so? Don't you understand that I'm different from my sister? I'm different from my brother. I'm different from my cousin. Because sometimes parents will tell you, why can't you be like your cousin so and so? Yeah, anapata A. Na mlisoma na yeye, mlienda the same primary school. You are in the same school. You're taught by the same teachers. So what is wrong with you? Why can't you be like them? So when they tell you that, you feel like they're hurting your feelings. You feel like they're not understanding you, and they also don't care about you, which is not the case. Sometimes all they want is the best for you, and they want you to be competitive, and they want you to work hard, and they want you to excel. But when they compare you, you feel very bad. And any human being who's compared with another always feels they have been wronged in one way or another. So in a nutshell, those are some of the causes of conflicts that may occur between you and your parents. And you need to learn how to resolve these conflicts so that they don't escalate and destroy the relationship between you and your parents. Let me just take some time and review the levels or types of conflicts. I'm sure I mentioned this at the beginning of the session when I was talking about intrapersonal conflicts. That is a conflict between you and yourself, within yourself. Because we said you are in the image of God. There is your body that has its own desires. There is your mind that has its own thoughts on how things should go. Then there is the spirit and the soul that has its own way. And then when these three don't agree, there'll always be a conflict. Whenever you want to do something wrong, your spirit will always tell you, no, that's wrong. You shouldn't steal. You shouldn't abuse so and so. So that is a conflict that is intrapersonal within yourself. And then you have interpersonal. There is a conflict between you and another person, between two people. You and your parent, you and your friend, you and your sibling, and so on and so forth. And then we have intra-group conflicts. Those are conflicts between two groups. It could be even at school, you have maybe discussion groups. And sometimes you feel like maybe the teacher favors that group over this. Wale wako group A, sisi tuko group B. Ama wale wako stream A, sisi tuko stream B. And you'll find that in school, sometimes even two classes can have conflicts. They don't agree, they don't see eye to eye. A member of Form 4A cannot talk to a member of Form 4B. They have beef with one another. And so that is what we call an intra-group. An intra-group conflict is a conflict within a group. So you're in a discussion group, but you don't agree on maybe some points. You don't agree on some answers. Maybe you've been given an assignment, and then you don't seem to agree. And you're supposed to present your answers as a group to the class or to the teacher. But among you, there are those of you who don't see eye to eye. There are those among you who think fulani ni kimbelembele anajipendekeza na asikilize wengine. Answers zake tu ndio nataka ziandikwe. Na sisi pia tuko na say. So that is an intra-group conflict, a conflict within a group. A conflict within a group. And then we have intra-organizational conflicts, which are conflicts within an organization. It could be a company and so on and so forth. But I don't want to dwell so much on those ones. I just want us to dwell on intrapersonal conflicts. That is a conflict within yourself, and interpersonal conflicts, a conflict between you and some other person. It could be your parent, it could be your brother, your sister, your friend. Those are interpersonal conflicts, conflicts between two people or more. Those are interpersonal conflicts. So we'll focus on intrapersonal and interpersonal conflicts and forget the rest for now. Although it's just important that you know that even organizations have conflicts, just like if I give an example, business organizations have conflicts. Because Airtel, for example, is competing with Safaricom. They will disagree on some things. They will disagree on some marketing skills. And that's why you'll see them copying each other's maybe advertisements and throwing shade, so to speak, on each other's adverts, even on TV. So you'll see some of those things, or on social media. Or that is an inter-organizational conflict, when you have two organizations that are competing against each other over one thing or another, or even political parties, if you were to think about the country. You have ODM, you have PNU, and which other parties, and they don't agree. They always have different interests, they have different goals and objectives, different manifestos, so they will never agree. That is inter-organizational conflict. I just needed you to know that, but let's not dwell on it so much for the sake of time. Now, whenever there is a conflict, there are four possible scenarios or outcomes or results. According to a researcher called Kate Davis, each conflict can either result in one or two of the following situations: a win-lose situation, a lose-lose situation, a win-win outcome, or a lose-win outcome. So I want us to pay attention to this diagram here so that we understand what I've just said as I explain these four results or outcomes of a conflict. Whenever two sides conflict, so let's have two people here. This is an interpersonal conflict. One person, let's call them X, so individual X. And this other person, let's call them individual Y. So it could be Peter and James, or whichever, but let's call them X and Y for purposes of understanding. So we have an individual called X and an individual called Y. These people are in a conflict. So you can see here I've written lose-win on the X-axis, for those of you who understand graphs, especially the high schoolers. And then on the Y-axis, that is, then here we also have lose and win. So in any conflict, you will either lose or win. You as a person will either lose that argument or win that argument. You will either get your way or you'll have to follow the other person's way. You will either get understood and make your point understood by the other person, or you'll have to understand the other person's point of view. So that is why we are talking about losing and winning. Losing an argument and winning an argument. So we have win-lose. If individual X loses and individual Y loses, that is called a lose-lose situation. Both of them have lost. Both of them have lost. But if individual X wins and individual Y loses, then that is a win-lose situation. If individual X wins and individual Y wins, that is a win-win situation. And if individual X loses and individual Y wins, that's a lose-win situation. So those are the four outcomes of any conflict, as far as you getting understood or the other person getting understood, you getting your way or you having to toe the line or do things the other person's way. So when you have a conflict between you and your parents, one of you must win, one of you must lose, or both of you will lose, or both of you will win, depending on the method that you use to resolve that conflict. So these results depend on the method that is used to resolve the conflict. And we're going to discuss those methods shortly. So there are some methods that will result into both of you winning and everybody feels happy and understood and loved and cared for. There is a situation where one of you will win and will celebrate, kwamba nimekushinda, nimekuweza, and the other person feels amelemewa, oppressed, not understood, not heard. Okay, that's a win-lose situation. So depending on the method of resolving the conflict, you can either have a win-lose, win-win, lose-lose, or lose-win outcome or result. But just as a pointer there, whenever you have an argument or a disagreement with someone, especially a loved one, like your parents, like your siblings, or any other relatives, or your best friend, never win an argument at the expense of a relationship. I'll say that again. Never win an argument at the expense of a relationship, because your relationship is more important. Your friendship, your relationship with your parents, your friendship with your siblings is more important than you winning that argument, than you getting whatever you are asking for, than you getting your way. So always value relationship. You can lose an argument, but win a relationship. Lose a fight, but win your relationship with your parents, win your relationship with your siblings, win your relationship with your friends. So that is something that I need you to take away from these outcomes or this particular slide. So let us now discuss the conflict resolution methods. Conflict resolution methods. So these are the methods that we use to resolve a conflict. And I've used a graph in order for us to understand, because I'll base these methods based on two things. Again, we have two individuals. Your approach to an argument or a conflict could either be cooperative or uncooperative. Whenever you have an argument or disagreement with someone, one of you will either be cooperative and the other one is uncooperative. For example, when you feel that you've wronged someone, or you feel that somebody has wronged you and you approach them, and all you want from them is an apology. And so you're explaining how you feel about what they did or what they said about you. So you are cooperating. You want to develop your friendship. You want to restore your relationship. But the other person can actually be uncooperative. In other words, they don't want to listen to you. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to hear anything that you have to say. So in that case, they are being uncooperative. The other approach we can look at is you are either passive or assertive in resolving a conflict. You are either passive, not doing anything at all, in other words, being very uncooperative, or you can be assertive, positive, aggressive, that you want to reach an end to that conflict. So it is these two approaches, either being passive or uncooperative, or on the other hand, being cooperative and assertive, that will determine which method of conflict resolution that you will use. All right? So based on this, we have 5 main methods of conflict resolution. 5 main methods. We have accommodating, collaborating, compromising, avoiding, and competing. Now, not all these methods are effective, and not all these methods are good. Some work for a win-win situation, some work for a win-lose situation, some work for a lose-lose situation. In other words, each of these methods will result into one of those 4 outcomes that I've explained before. So depending on which one you pick to use, the outcome will either be win-win, lose-lose, or win-lose, or lose-win out of those methods. Whichever you pick, you will come up with one of those outcomes. So let us look at them one by one. The first method is called avoiding. And I'm sure you've heard the phrase, burying your head in the sand. And there are 2 images here. This strategy or this method is called the ostrich strategy. The ostrich strategy. In other words, when ostriches are faced with, I'm sure you know ostrich, the bird, when they are faced with danger, the way they avoid that danger is by burying their head in the sand, just like you can see in this image here. Now, what you need to ask yourself is, by burying its head in the sand, has it dealt with the danger? Has it avoided the danger, or is it still in danger? So this method of avoiding, as you can tell from the symbolism we are using here, is not one of the best methods of dealing with conflicts. Because conflicts, we've said, are part of life. They are part of every relationship that we have. And so we can't avoid them. So avoiding or burying your head in the sand and assuming that things will just work out all right will not work. For example, when you have a disagreement with your parent and you've been disagreeing over one thing, it could be your fashion sense, it could be your academic performance, it could be any of those things that you said are the causes of conflicts between you and your parent. So whenever you conflict about any of those things, avoiding is not the best method. You don't avoid the subject. You don't assume that things will just sort themselves out. You don't bury your head in the sand. So avoiding occurs when each party has a low concern for self and for others. In other words, you don't care about yourself and you don't care about others. Just like the ostrich, if a lion is approaching and lion is the danger, and then it buries its head in the sand, one, what it is communicating is it doesn't actually love itself, because shortly it will be supper for the lion. It will become a meal shortly, because it's burying its head in the sand, assuming that because I can't see the lion, then the lion cannot see me. It's just like babies sometimes. You see babies hiding themselves by covering their eyes or closing their eyes. And they assume because I can't see you, then you can't see me, so I'm hiding. So, and you know that does not work because you can still see them. So similarly, when you try to avoid a conflict, that is basically what you're doing. You're closing your eyes to something that should actually confront, either confront or run away from. So this happens when the dispute is so small or you don't care. When the dispute is so small, sometimes you can do that. You can say, it's nothing worth fighting about. It is not worth fighting for. It is not worth quarreling for. Our friendship is more important. Our relationship as brothers and sisters, as parents and daughters and sons is more important than this dress, than this channel that we are fighting about. So we're fighting about a remote, and you want to watch this, I want to watch the other thing. So is this worth us quarreling about and fighting and not talking to each other the whole day over one single program? So that is a dispute that is small. That's something that you can actually avoid and just let the other person have their way or withdraw. You withdraw from that conflict, or you conceal the incompatibility. In other words, you are avoiding the topic completely, avoiding the argument. You don't want to argue about it. So that is called concealing. When you avoid the topic, you are concealing the differences. So that the other person, if it's, for example, a TV show, you have your favorite TV show, the other person wants to watch a series in the house. So your TV show is coming up, this person has a series, na amefika episode ingine moto, na hataki kuachia hapo, anataka ishe. Ndio, so that aanze na episode ingine next time. But there is this show of yours that is running now, and you have to watch it. So you can either decide, one of you decides to conceal and avoid the topic completely. Avoid arguing about the remote. Avoid arguing about it. Or withdrawing, leave the field of conflict. Unajipa shughuli, so to speak. Unajipatia shughuli nyingine. That is withdrawing. So there are two things that happen during avoiding. You can either withdraw from the conflict or conceal. In other words, avoid the topic completely. Avoid that disagreement by concealing the differences between the two of you. And then the other method is competing, which is what most of us are used to. And even as I discuss this method, I want you at the back of your head to ask yourself, what will it result into? What outcome will come out of each method? Is it win-win? Is it lose-lose? Is it win-lose or lose-win? What will come out of using each of these methods of conflict resolution? So competing is whereby only one party can win at the cost of the other. So it's a competition. In a competition, you can't have two winners. You are either the winner or the loser. So if you're running, you're either number one or number two or number three. There is no two winners. And even when there's a tie in some sports, you have to repeat or do the game until we actually have a winner. If it's in football, you have to go to a penalty shootout until we determine who's the winner and who's the loser. You can't have both of you winning because both teams cannot raise the trophy. Only one team has to take the trophy. The trophy is one, so it can't be shared between two teams. So one party has to win, the other party has to lose. So it means one party has a very rigid stand. In other words, they don't want to compromise. They don't want to listen to the other person. Their way has to be the way. And you've heard people use the phrase, my way or the highway. My way or the highway. That is a dominating person. That person is in competition. So the two parties settle their score by applying their strength or their pressure against each other. So this sometimes leads to bullying. Unafeel mtu mmoja amekuwa oppressed, mtu anafinyiliwa, because the other person is always using either their strength to have their way. For example, in a conflict between you and your parent, if for some reason you are right in whatever the argument is or whatever the disagreement is, and your parent is wrong, but because they are your parent, sometimes they will say, and when you question them, why do you want me to do this, mom or dad? Then they say, because I'm your father, or because I said so. You see, they're not giving room for negotiation. They're not giving room for you to discuss. It's not up for discussion. You do so because daddy said so. And why are you doing it? Because I'm your father, because I've said so. So that is dominating. Them using their strength, their position to assert their way. And sometimes you can also do the same, because sometimes we feel that the winner is always the person who is more powerful in terms of physical strength. Sometimes it's children. Sometimes you, as a child, can actually use the competing or dominating method in a fight with your parents. And you blackmail them. And you tell them, oh, because I'm your daughter, because I'm your last born, because I'm the firstborn. And sometimes you also use the same when you're dealing with your siblings. If you're the firstborn, sasa unaamua leo ni kitu yako ya kuosha vyombo, unaamua hutaosha, it's the other person who will wash. Why? Because I'm the elder. Na nimesema hivyo. Dada yuko, mama yuko, so I'm in charge. That is a dominating approach to solving a disagreement. You're using your aggression. And so what comes to mind when you're talking about competing is wrestling. In a wrestling match, one person has to put the other person down in order for us to determine who won that match. So they have to fight until one person actually taps out. One person admits that they have been defeated and they cannot rise on their feet again. They can no longer continue with the fight. So that is what comes to mind. So ask yourself, is it the best method of resolution? And if it can be used, under what circumstances in conflicts with your, to use this as a method of resolving. The other method is accommodating. Accommodating occurs when concern for for others is higher than concern for self. In other words, when you care about others so much more than you care about yourself. So you want the other person's peace. You want the other person's happiness. So your concern for them is higher than your concern for yourself. In other words, you're not selfish. So you accommodate the other person's point of view. You accommodate the other person's needs and interests. So if they are arguing, if it's a TV show that you're arguing about, then let the other person have the remote. Utaki shida, utaki kelele. Unapenda hiyo, then you do that. I'll find something else to do. You are accommodating the other person's interest. You are more concerned about the other person's emotions and feelings. So this method is relevant when the outcome is more important to the other party or when it may result in cordial relationships between the two parties. In other words, when the result you want is more important to the other person than to you. When whatever you are fighting about is more important to the other person than to you. For example, a conflict between you and your parent. Sometimes, some conflicts that you have with your parent, something is more important to them than to you. For example, if they are talking about family image, and they say in this family, there's a certain dress code that we have. Daddy says there'll be no miniskirts in my house. There'll be no short dresses or mini dresses in my house, because this is a Christian home and we will dress decently. We will be presentable wherever we go. You see, that is important to your parents, how the family looks like to the members of the church, to you in your neighborhood. That image is important for them. So if that is what is more important to them than to you. For you, you just want to have a feel of how it feels like to dress like that. Or maybe you just want to please your friends. And when you weigh between pleasing my friends and pleasing my parents, which is more important? So if the outcome that by pleasing your parents, you will be more peaceful in the house, you will have less conflicts with them, you'll have no quarrels with them, then accommodating is the best method. You pick to look at their concern. What are they concerned about? Are they concerned about my results? Is it important for them? Why is it important for them? Why is it important that I should actually work hard in my academics? Why is it important that I should actually not watch TV till midnight? Why? Why do they insist on me sleeping at 9? Why do they insist on me sleeping at 5? Why? What is so important about it? So once you discover why something is important to the other person, you'll be able to accommodate them and you'll be able to resolve that conflict. The other one is what we call compromising. Now, in compromising, it's what we call a give and take. So in other words, here, it's a win-win situation or a lose-lose situation. Win-win situation in the sense that I give something, you give something, I take something from you. So it occurs when the concern for self and concern for others are mid-range. In other words, are equal. You care about the other person's concern as much as the other person cares about your concerns. You care about the other person's point of view in equal measure. The other person also cares so much about your point of view. You care about the other person's feelings and they care about your feelings about this matter. And therefore, you decide that none of us should win. None of us should lose. Let us have a situation where none of us is a loser and all of us are actually giving something. All of us are sacrificing something. So for example, you can decide on the matters of academics that, okay, because my parents are claiming that I'm weak and maybe I need tuition and I need homeschooling. And in order to be attentive for homeschooling, I need to sleep early. So you can compromise that, okay, if I have to sleep early, then I'll wake up and maybe study or have my own time to study. Or if I'm giving out this, whatever thing that you want me to give out, then I'll take this. If I'm giving out internet time, for example, your parents tell you, you have no right to own a mobile phone. The phone is ours. You will use it when we say you use it. We will take it whenever we wish. Okay, so you agree with your parent. Okay, then if I'm giving away the phone, then when I get the phone, can I use it for ABCD? Or can I use to attend maybe a Zoom meeting like this one, or a Zoom class, or something that is productive? So you can always compromise. You give out, you give some, and you take some, and eventually everybody is happy, and the conflicting parties are able to resolve. But this method, however, is not suitable when emotions are high or when both parties are rigid. When parties are rigid, it means that nobody wants to give way. Nobody wants to give anything, but everybody wants to take. I want to take this, I want to have my way, and I'm not ready to sacrifice anything. The other person also the same. They want to take, but they don't want to give anything in return. So like, for example, if you want movies, you want series, you want to watch TV, you want a mobile phone, but you're not ready to give good academic performance to your parents. You're not ready to show that you can actually create a timetable for yourself and study at home so that they see you're actually working hard towards the grade that they desire. That means you're not compromising. You're very rigid. You're just throwing tantrums. You're not talking to anybody because they refuse to give you a phone. You're not talking to anybody because they refuse to buy you that dress or that shoe for your birthday that you really wanted. And so you start throwing tantrums, becoming rude, not talking. And so this method is not good if you are rigid. You must be flexible. Both of you must be flexible so that you give something, you sacrifice something, and in return you get what you actually wanted. And eventually everybody wins. So when it comes to compromising, I'll just brush through this. Modes of compromising: you can negotiate or bargain, There is arbitration and voting, and then mediation. These are modes of compromising, although I don't want to go into the details of that, because basically we've understood what compromising is, and that's what I wanted you to get. In other words, it's a give and take. You can give and take through negotiating. Give me this, I give you that. You've negotiated, just like in the market. You go find a dress in a boutique, the marked price is 500 shillings, but you can't afford 500 shillings. You have 300. So you say, I have 300 shillings. The seller tells you, no, I can't sell for less than 400. And so wewe ongeza 100, ongeza so nikupatie. So yeye amepunguza so, ikakuja 400, wewe nao ongeze so. Everybody has given something and taken something. Everybody has given something, so the seller has received their profit, and you've gotten the dress that you wanted or the shoe that you wanted. That is bargaining or negotiation. So similarly, you need to learn negotiation skills for you to be good at compromising or using compromising as a method of solving conflicts between you and your parents. And negotiation has to do with you being a very good communicator. And at the end, I'm going to show you how to communicate. And then we have collaboration. Collaboration is working together, just like these images show here. You are actually working together, one with the other. You are coming up with a solution to your problem or your disagreement together by listening to each other's views. So collaboration involves working with the other party to find the solution that would satisfy both parties. So in other words, you want a win-win situation. Both of you want to win. And because you want to win, you work together. You combine your insights. You combine your views. Dad, unaonaje? Nikifanya hivi na hivi na hivi, hiyo itakuwa sawa? Dad nakwambia hapana, hiyo itakuwa sawa. Mimi ningependa ufanye hivi na hivi na hivi. Then you ask, why would you suggest that I do that? Then they explain. And they ask you, why do you want this so bad? And then you explain yourself in a good manner, in a respectful manner. And when you do that, this leads to trust, it leads to better understanding, and it leads to working together harmoniously. In other words, living peacefully with each other. When both of you can actually collaborate and work together in order to solve a conflict, you and your parents, this will always lead to trust between you and them. Because one of the things that you will keep fighting with your parents about is trust. Most of you feel that your parents don't trust you. That's why they can't give you a phone, because they don't know, they can't trust that you will not misuse the internet or the Wi-Fi in the house, and so on and so forth. They can't allow you to go out and visit friends because they don't trust you to handle yourself with those friends or those kinds of people. So you need to learn how to collaborate, work together with your parent. If your parent says, I don't want to see you with so and so in this neighborhood, in this estate, then work together with your parent. Tell them what you think is good about your friend, and let your parent tell you what they see is wrong with your friend. And then eventually you'll work around it. Maybe you can agree, okay, then I'll never allow them in the house. We can talk at the balcony, at the veranda, or at hapo nje, but hakuna kuenda kwao, hakuna wao kuja kwetu. But we can play outside here. That is collaborating. You've agreed that both of you win. You get to still hang out with your friend, although your parent also still gets to have a say in who you hang out with, what time, and for how long. So both of you win. Your parents are still in control of you, and you still get to hang out with whoever you wanted to hang out with. That is called collaboration. So in order for you to resolve conflicts, you need some skills. Just like I've said, one of the skills is negotiation skills. The other one is self-awareness, because you need to know yourself. You need to understand yourself. If you don't understand yourself, it will be difficult even to understand others. Because once you know yourself, you will also understand what we call the intrapersonal conflicts, the conflicts between you and yourself. You can't resolve those conflicts if you are not self-aware. And I'm sure self-awareness is one of the top topics that, for those of you who've been following this forum for a while, is one of the topics we've discussed in these sessions. And so it's important, just understand yourself, because when you understand yourself, you're able to understand others and also to love others, just like you want to be loved. Number two is empathy. Empathy is being able to view problems from another person's perspective. In other words, trying to walk in the other person's shoes. So if it is between you and your parents, develop empathy for your parents. What are they worried about? When they tell you you should be home by 6, what is their worry? What is their concern? Wanaogopa nini? Understand them. Ask yourself, if I was the mother, if I was my mother, would I allow my child with this COVID-19 pandemic, with all this insecurity maybe in the estate, will I allow my child to be out at night? So you need to understand the other person's point of view. If I was my father who is working so hard to pay school fees, would I want my daughter or my son to fail exams the way they are failing, or to be rude to teachers and get expelled or get suspended from a school that I'm working so hard to pay school fees? I'm sweating to pay school fees. So when you start understanding your parents and looking at things from their point of view, you will now be able to actually resolve conflicts with them. You'll understand why they are saying the things they are saying. You'll understand why they are mad at you. And therefore, you will find a way to resolve that conflict. The other thing is communication skills. And the communication involves listening and speaking. And this is a topic by itself. So maybe some other time we shall talk about communication skills and how do you communicate so that you are able to be understood properly, and how do you listen to other people so that you're able to understand their point of view. How do you empathize with others? That's a topic by itself. But for now, just know that you need to learn how to communicate so that you are understood. You don't get understood by throwing tantrums. You don't get understood by refusing to talk or refusing to eat or locking yourself in your room. That's not how you get your way. You will get your way once you learn to communicate what it is that you are concerned about, that you are mad about, that you really want. Then we have assertiveness. Being able to say what you think and what you feel with respect to others and with respect to yourself. And then problem solving. Remember, conflict resolution is a method of solving problems. And for you to do that, you need to be very creative, because some conflicts you actually need to think out of the box in order to solve them. You don't just solve them by maybe just talking the way you want or saying what you want. Some you will need to be very creative in order to actually reach an amicable solution where both of you win. You get your way as a teenager and your parent gets their way as the parent. And then negotiation and critical thinking. You need to be a thinker. You need to be creative. You need to be critical in your thinking. In other words, your reasoning should be mature. Your reasoning should be mature for you to be able to solve conflict. Lazima utoe utoto, upunguze utoto. Wewe ni mtoto lakini punguza utoto ili uweze kufanya nini? Kusolve conflicts. And then anger management. One of the results of conflict is anger. You get angry. And that's why we were talking about escalation, where people are name calling, people are shouting, people are abusing each other, and people are so mad. And you've seen some people who get so mad that they even commit suicide. And you've even seen in the news where there is a conflict in a family, then a father wakes up and just kills the mother, cuts up the mother in pieces and the children, and then he hangs himself. That is because these people were not able to manage their anger. They were in a conflict, they were in disagreement, but because they did not de-escalate, because they did not resolve that conflict properly, their anger took charge of them and they did something that is unreasonable or inhuman. And then stress management, because sometimes when emotions are high, one of the things that happens is we feel stressed. When your parents are making demands of you and they have expectations of you, you will also feel very stressed, because you're stressed about academic performance, you're stressed about your look and how you hang out, which friends you hang out with, and what they think about you and of you and about your parents. And all these things can bring stress. So you need to learn how to manage stress, because stress can also prevent you from, if you are suffering from stress and you can't control it, it can actually escalate your conflicts. And sometimes you result into methods that are harmful. So as I get towards the end, let me discuss the practical tips, especially based on the Bible, that we can use to effectively resolve conflicts. Things we can do in order to resolve conflicts. Number one, conflict resolution requires wisdom. And so the first thing you need to do is ask for wisdom from God. And according to the Bible, the book of James chapter 1 verse 5, it says that anybody who lacks wisdom should ask of God. I don't want to paraphrase it. Maybe, I don't know whether we have enough time to read. But in the interest of time, maybe I'll just give you that as an assignment. Please, whichever Bible reference I've given here, write it down, and then make sure you read and understand and also discuss with your parents and discuss with your siblings about what you've understood from those Bible verses that I've referred to here. So point number one, I've said ask for wisdom. Because without wisdom, you cannot resolve conflicts. Without wisdom, you cannot understand other people. Without wisdom, you cannot understand how to express yourself in a manner that is respectable to others. Without wisdom, you can't understand yourself, and you cannot even understand the will of God. And the Bible says, if you don't have wisdom, ask for it. How do you ask for wisdom? You simply pray for it. Because that same verse there, verse 6, 7, it says, you do not have because you don't ask. And for those who ask, you ask with ill motives. So ask for wisdom, and God will give you wisdom to know how to resolve conflicts. So if you've been going through stuff with your parents, and there's something you've been wanting to tell your parents, but you really don't know how to approach them, daddy ni mkali, mami atanishautia, and you have all these fears about how they will react, ask God tonight, ask God to give you wisdom. And God will give you wisdom, and he'll give you actually the words to say. You'll not even need to think about it. God is faithful, and he'll give you wisdom. Number two, take initiative. In other words, make the first move. And again, I want you to refer to the book of James, chapter 4, verse 1 to 3. You are supposed, whenever there's a conflict, you are supposed to make the first move. Especially even if you're the one who has been wronged, or you feel you're the one who is right, and your way is the right way. Take the initiative to approach the other person. Take the initiative to talk to your parent. You don't throw a tantrum, go lock yourself in the room. That is not taking initiative. That is burying your head in the sand. That is the ostrich strategy. You are not an ostrich. You are a child of God, and you're a child of your parents. So take the initiative. Say, I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry, Mom, I've not been performing the way you want. I'm sorry, Mom, I've been rude to you. I'm sorry, Dad, I've not dressed or shaved my hair the way you wanted me to do. I'm sorry for that. I won't do it again. So take the initiative to start making good relationships with your parents and with your siblings. Number three, communicate your feelings. We've said communication skills are very key, very important when it comes to resolving conflicts. And one of the things I want you to learn is what we call the I way strategy. I way, not highway, I, letter I way. Whenever you communicate your feelings, use the I way. What is the I way that I'm talking about? Begin your statements with I feel. So I want you to write this statement down actually. This is the I way that I'm talking about. This is the format you should always use when you're communicating, because most times we communicate wrongly. We are saying the right thing, but we are saying it wrongly. And so it comes out badly. And so we are misunderstood. So in order for your parents to understand you, learn how to use this phrase. I feel, then say the emotion. What do you feel? How do you feel? When you, now your parent, when your parent does what? Mom, I feel bad. I feel disrespected. Those are emotions. When you shout at me, when you abuse me, when you do ABCD. So state the thing that makes you feel the way you feel. The thing that the other person does that makes you feel the way you feel. All right? So if it is maybe you have conflicts maybe with your sister, and some siblings share clothes and some don't borrow or ask for permission. So there's this dress that you have, and then you're the same size with your sister, and then your sister decides, si nania yuko leo avae hii dress, acha ning'are nayo. Kidogo kidogo ametokea nayo. And they never even asked you. So it is good to learn how to communicate that. I feel bad. I feel disrespected when you take my dress without asking me. Now that is the behavior. Take my dress without asking me. And I want, now say what you need. Now suggest a solution for that conflict. You see, as a child of God, you should be a problem solver, not a problem creator. So there's a problem when your sister, using this example, keeps taking your dress without your permission or without your consent, and you don't like it. So you need to come up with a solution. So how do you feel when they do what they are doing? Then what do you want? What is the solution? What is the way forward? And I want you to ask for permission next time you want to take my dress. I want you to borrow kindly next time you want to wear my dress. If it is your parent, again, use the same method. You don't just throw tantrums and go lock yourself in your room or stop talking or stop eating, and then they're wondering, nini mbaya na huyu? Because that will only result into escalating the problem. Because now they will misunderstand your silence for rudeness. All right? And so you need to learn how to communicate your feelings and state what the other person does, even if it's your parent. State respectively what they do that makes you feel the way you're feeling and what you want them to do or to stop doing. And that will actually help you to communicate and resolve that conflict. The other thing that you need to learn, even as a Christian, is to speak the truth, but tactfully and in love. The Bible says that we should speak the truth in love, all right? Because sometimes you can be saying the right thing. You can actually be saying the truth. You can actually be saying what you really feel. And the other person is actually wrong, and so you want to correct them. But if you don't use tact, if you don't use wisdom, and if you don't say it out of love and care and concern for the other person, because remember I've said, how you resolve a conflict depends on your concern for others and concern for yourself. So you have to care about the other person. How would you feel if somebody talked to you the same way? How would you feel if somebody used the same words? So before you speak, think, choose your words carefully so that you actually say whatever you want to say in love, especially if you're correcting somebody who has wronged you and you're expressing your anger, you're expressing your dissatisfaction. Do so in love. So refer to Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15 and verse 29, and also Proverbs chapter 12, verse 18. You will learn how to speak the truth in love. Speak the truth with concern for others, not just saying what you feel without thinking, if I was told the same way, how would I feel? How would that make me feel? And then admit your faults. When you're corrected, admit you're wrong. Don't excuse yourself and don't accuse the other party. Don't excuse yourself and don't accuse the other party. Because sometimes when we are cornered, one of the most obvious things we do is to try and apportion blame to some other person or accuse the other person. Kama wewe ungenifanyia hivyo, mimi singefanya hivyo. Kama wewe ungeniongelesha vibaya, singekujibu vibaya. No. It is up to you to admit your faults and do so fast. Don't wait for the other person to start. As we said, take initiative. So admit your faults. And sometimes you might actually not see your fault. You might actually think you're very right and the other person is wrong. Because sometimes a conflict is a result of different perceptions. The other person sees something differently from you. Let's take an example. If the number 9 is written in the sand, the number 9 is written in the sand, the curved 9, okay? Let me just draw it in the air. I hope you understand. The curved 9, ile inakaa kama G, all right? Ukiandika 9 kama G. And then it's written in the sand, kubwa. Then one person stands at the tail end of that number. The other person stands at the head. So at each end. So this is our 6 or our 9, depending on how you are looking at it. So one person will see 6. The other person on the other hand, akiangalia anaona 6. The other person anaona 9. And they will keep arguing, ni 9, ni 6. Ni 9, ni 6. Now who's right and who's wrong? Who's right and who's wrong? Both of them are right because they're looking at it from their perspective. So most times, you might not actually see your fault. And so be always willing to hear, what is the other person seeing that is so wrong? What is the other person seeing that makes them mad? What is dad saying? What is mom saying that makes them quarrel you all the time? What is it about your behavior? What is it about your conduct that is making them so mad at you? So admit your faults and sometimes ask, nimekosea wapi, so that you admit and apologize. Then listen to the other person's heart. So this is connected to what I've just said. Always seek to learn the other person's perspective. Yeye anaonaje, and then validate them. In other words, don't dismiss other people's feelings. Wewe wakati unasema vile unafeel unataka watu wakusikie. Wakati wengine wanasema vile wanafeel, you dismiss them. Wewe hiyo ni utoto. Unapenda kulalamika kila saa. Unapenda kulialia. Or when mom is quarreling, mama anapenda kunipigia kelele. Do not dismiss other people's feelings. Mom is mad, that is why she's shouting at you. That's why she's screaming. Dad is mad, that is why he has grounded you or taken your phone or done whatever he's done that you think is wrong to you. Listen to the other person's perspective and validate them. In other words, accept that they are right in what they are thinking or saying. And then say, I'm sorry. I was only thinking about myself. Once you see your fault. And then fix the problem, not the blame. Because people are experts at fixing blame. When something goes wrong, you want to fix blame on the other person. Ni mama tu anapenda kupiga kelele. Ni dada tu wani understand. Don't fix the blame, fix the problem. Attack the issue, not the other person. Attack the issue that is making you have conflicts. Whatever that issue is, from the many issues that we've discussed, attack that issue and not the other person. It is not your parent that is wrong. It is not your dad that is wicked. It is not your mom that is bad. It is the issue that you're quarreling about. And always separate the issue from the person. Usiambia mtu wewe unakuanga mjinga. Sema hii tabia ni mjinga. Sio wewe mjinga. Tabia ndio ujinga. Sio wewe mpuzi. Huu ndio upuzi. The issue. I hope you're getting what I'm saying. So always differentiate the person and the behavior. Attack the behavior, correct the behavior, so that you remain in love with the person. You mend your relationship with the person. And then focus on reconciliation. Focus on coming up with a resolution. Build bridges, not walls. So when you go and lock yourself in your room, when you stop talking to your friend, to your brother, your sister, your parents, that is building a wall. Build bridges. Always seek to find a solution to the problems that are facing you and your friends. So as I conclude, because I've been teaching, and on the other end, I'm also a teacher, I want to give you a practical assignment, because I believe we learn these things so that we do them. You attend this forum so that at the end of the session, you are able to practice what you've learned. Not just listening, but listening and doing. Listening, internalizing, and then making these teachings a part of you. So I have two assignments for you. Number one, I want you to identify areas of conflict between you and your parents. In other words, find out in what areas do I fight or do I quarrel with my parents? Is it in the area of my dressing? Is it in the area of my academics? Is it in the area of my friends? Identify, list all those areas down. After you've identified those areas, now approach your parents. Find time and approach your parents. Then practice the I-way model. Remember the I-way model? I feel dash 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 when you dash 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 and I want dash dash dash. That's the I-way model. So practice that. Each of the problems that you find you have with your parents, each of the conflicts you have, either with your parents, your friends, your siblings, or any other relative, and even neighbors, list all those problems down and then approach them at the right time, because timing is also key. Don't approach your parent when they're mad. Don't approach your parent when they're tired. They've just come from work. I feel, hapana, wacha relax, wacha shibe. Wakati ameanza kupiga story, by the way, mom, I normally feel this, when you, this, and I want, or I wish, this. You see, you've expressed yourself. You've taken one of the areas of conflict and communicated, and then wait for your parent to respond. And I'm sure they will respond positively. Don't keep quiet. Don't shut yourself up. Assignment number 2, this would have been a role play where we in a one-on-one session, but because it's virtual, I want you to practice mediation skills. In other words, I said at the beginning of this session that we are not just forging peace between us and those people who wrong us or those that we have conflicts with, but we are also going out of our way, as we were commanded in the Bible, to be peacemakers. Well, blessed are the peacemakers, they shall be called children of God. Yes. So I want you to be peacemakers, and I want you to practice what we call mediation skills. So act as a mediator between two conflicting parties in your family. So identify people in your family who have conflicts, who keep quarreling, who are not seeing eye to eye, who keep shouting at each other, abusing each other over one issue or another. Identify these people. And then, as a sibling, as a brother, as a sister, as a relative, or even as a friend, because they could be your friends. Sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you have two friends, both of them are your friends, but the two are not in terms with each other. So ukiwa na huyu anakwambia yule ni mbaya, anafanya hivi na hivi na hivi na hivi. Ukiwa na huyu naye anakwambia ubaya wa huyu. So they're not seeing eye to eye. I want you to identify these friends of yours. And whether you can visit them or whether you can meet them in person or whether you can give them a phone call, but mediate, or a video call, mediate between the two of them. Try and figure out, help them to find what the issue is, and then come up with a resolution to that. And I'll be so glad to hear your reports about how it goes. When you talk to your parents, get in touch with any of the mentors in this session and tell them your story, tell them your testimony. By the way, I tried the Highway model, and this is how it went. I told my mom about this issue, I told my dad about this issue, and imagine this is what happened after that. We would like to hear those testimonies, and that will be so encouraging because we will know that you're actually taking something away. And we'll also love to hear your testimonies of you mediating between your friends, mediating between your siblings and other relatives or people around you. So those are the 2 assignments I want you to do. And I hope that you take them seriously and actually do them and be faithful to yourself, be faithful to God, and the purpose to actually practice what we have learned in this session. So in conclusion, remember, 2 imperfect people cannot make a perfect relationship. We are all imperfect. We all make mistakes. And therefore, our relationships will never be perfect. There is no family that has a perfect relationship. So never wish to be in Kina so and so's family. Never wish that your dad or your mom like was Baba Nani or Mama Nani. Hata Mama Nani ako na issues zake, vile tu baba yako ako na issues zake. Okay? So all people, we are all imperfect. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. So none of us is perfect. Therefore, we cannot have perfect relationships. In other words, I'm saying conflicts will always be there. But it's up to us to actually resolve those conflicts. And then number 2, we can have unity without conformity. We can agree to disagree. I believe you've heard that phrase. That we can all be united. We can all be family. We can all be friends, although we disagree on some issues. And I want to refer to 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 18 to 20. Sometimes we have to disagree to agree, and we are still friends. For example, my favorite color is blue. Yours could be pink. Does it mean that blue is bad? Does it mean that pink is bad? I don't like pink, but I like you. Pink is not my favorite color, but we're still friends. So we've agreed to disagree. I don't conform to your likes. You don't conform to my likes, but we are unified. We are one. We are friends. We are good with each other. And then remember, hurting people hurt others. So every time that somebody hurts you, it's because they've been hurt, either by you or by somebody else. So sometimes don't just blame people without understanding their perspective, without understanding where they're coming from. Even your parents, they are adults, yes, but they go through stuff in their life, or they've gone through stuff in their life that is making them talk the way they talk, behave the way they behave. So don't be judgmental. Don't criticize and judge them. Seek to understand them, because they may be hurting. You might have hurt them in the past, and they're still recovering from that. So don't think simply because they're your parents, they just forgive you because you're their child. Of course, they'll forgive you. They'll provide for you. They love you. but sometimes they're still hurting from what you did to them. And so give them also time to heal and understand them. Then it is more rewarding to resolve a conflict than to dissolve a relationship. Just like I said, never win an argument at the expense of a relationship. Lose the argument, lose the fight, but win the relationship, win the friendship, remain friends. Lose the argument, but remain friends. Let them have their way. If your parents want you to behave in a certain way or to do things a certain way, let them have their way. Mend the relationship. Then both of you having a poor relationship, you can't talk to each other, you can't see eye to eye, you can't tell them when you have problems because you're not talking. You'd rather have that good relationship where you're talking than you having your way and then losing your father, losing your mother because now you are not in terms. And then remember, according to Matthew chapter 5 verse 9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. So go out there and make peace. Make peace with one another, make peace with your parents, make peace with your friends, so that we shall be children of God, truly children of God. And in case you need to get in touch with me or you need me to help you also mediate between your friends, between your parents, because some of you might wonder, how do I now approach dad? I see dad and mom have conflicts, but I'm just a child in this house. What can I do? You can either get in touch with me or get in touch with any of the mentors so that they can actually help you in mediation. They can talk to your parents on your behalf. Tell us what you think and what you feel, and we will be confidential. We will respect your privacy, and we will talk to your parents on your behalf and tell them, by the way, your daughter feels like this when you two do A, B, C, D. And it will be our pleasure to do so. We are here for you. We love you. We care for you. You are ours, and we want to see you in heaven. And we don't want you to miss heaven because of simple conflicts that we can actually help each other to solve. So these are my contacts. You can either share them with your parents and tell them, by the way, there is this teacher who was talking to us, and I'd like you to give him a call and talk to him. Maybe he'll help you. Or your friends also. You can refer your friends or relatives or any other person to talk to us through any of these ways. In addition to the other contacts of the other teachers, I'm sure some of you have the contacts and some of your parents also have our contacts. So feel free to get in touch with us. I hope you've written down that number and that email address. And then for those of you who are on IG, please follow me, like my comments and whatever I post there. I post motivational stuff. Please follow so that you are edified and you are well mentored all around. At this point, I want to end my presentation, although I know I've rushed so much, but it was because of time. I would like to hand it to any of the mentors, maybe to guide us through a Q&A section. I don't know who's on board here.
I am here, Bwana Kituzi.
Yes, Ben King. I'm glad to hear from you, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Happy to hear from you too, and also giving us those very proper guidelines on how to relate with parents. We are so grateful. We thank God for you. Thank you so much. You've done just very well, and we really appreciate. Thank you, thank you. Maybe we can hear from mentees. We get to see if they have any questions. Any question can be sent to the chat, or you can unmute and ask it verbally. Anyone with a question on, probably you've heard, you know, these things are real. My friends, let's be candid. You've probably had a conflict with your parents, and maybe you never resolved it. Maybe you resolved it, but you never got satisfied, or maybe your parent never got satisfied with how you resolved it. Maybe it's still actually, it's still eating you and you are quiet, this is the time, this is the platform where you speak out and we discuss, we get to help you. So let's ask any question. Anyone with a question, please.
You can even ask on behalf of a friend.
Yes.
You know of a friend who has conflicts with another or their parents, just ask and we'll respond.
Yes, excuse me. How can you
Yes,
avoid?
Nixon.
How can you avoid these conflicts zenye si vitu kubwa, ni hizi vitu za ndogo ndogo that they just happen without you, like kama unabeba maji inamwagika, labda inachafua kitu. How can you hizo unawezaje toa, unaweza toa analysis ya hiyo shida aje ndio ujue how you can solve it?
Yes, Nixon, thank you so much for that.
Very wonderful.
That's a good question.
Yes, Bana Kituzi, you can go ahead because these are songs that they are eating almost all of us.
Okay, so some things, as you said, Nixon, they are very small. They actually look very small to you. But like I said, you remember the analogy of the number 6 and the number 9. If you're standing on either side of the number 6, one person standing at the head and the other person standing at the tail, one will see a 6, the other one will see a 9. Sasa wewe umebeba maji, unapita sitting room. Labda umetoka kuchota kwa tap and you have maybe to cross the sitting room, maybe to take it wherever you want. Now, every time you do that, it spills on the carpet. And mom knows that I spend a lot of money in cleaning this carpet. So to mom, this is a 9. It's a big thing. It's an issue. To you, matone kadhaa tu imemwagika. It's a 6. It's a small thing. Hii ni kitu kidogo. Sasa ni nini napigiwa kelele? Just a few drops. Na siwezi avoid hii maji kumwagika. So maybe some of the conflicts you see can actually be avoided. Like I said, one of the methods of resolving conflicts is avoiding. And you can only avoid conflicts that are very small, like what you're saying. If a conflict is small, you can avoid it. For example, you know what to do. Every time I fetch water, I'll spill it. It will result into a conflict. It will result into noise. So how do I do that? Maybe you can always be rolling up the carpet before you do whatever you want to do, so that you do whatever you're doing, then clean the floor, and everybody's happy. Mom is happy, you are happy. Hakuna mtu amepigia mwingine kelele. So it's about knowing what are the triggers. And sometimes it's not about, we're using this example of Nixon ya kumwaga maji, but sometimes it's the small things. Every one of us, in our relationship with our parents and even our friends, there are those small things. And even for those of us who are married, there are those small things that trigger our emotions. They trigger conflicts. You know, if I do this, this person will respond like this. If I do this, this person will complain. So you simply avoid doing that. Or if you must do it, then apologize in advance or warn them in advance. Nataka kuchota maji, na place ikimwagika usipige kelele, nitamop. All right? So you can always prepare the other person because you can see now they are 9. You can see their point of view. So seek to understand what causes the conflict, what triggers the conflict, so that if it can be avoided, avoid it. If it can't be avoided and something you must do, then let the other person know you are doing it, and let them also understand why you are doing it, and understand why they are against it, and then explain yourself. So you'll always reach a compromise. You will collaborate. You will work together towards avoiding that conflict. Any other question?
In my school, the one which I am in now, there is a deskmate of mine who usually gets into trouble with the teacher because of the person sitting behind him. They always make noise, and then sometimes they usually disturb him by taking his pen. And then when he turns around to take it, the teacher starts saying that he's making noise with the others. And when he tries to explain himself, the teacher says that he's anatoa excuse. So how can I tell the guy how to approach the situation ndio wasishinde wakigombezana na mwalimu.
That's also very good. Now you are becoming a mediator, which is our desire, that all of you people will actually be peacemakers and qualify to be called children of God. Now, in such a situation, one of the things we expect that you will do from this session is that you will actually practice and spread it to your friends who might not have been part of this session. And you can teach your friend the I model of communication. For example, you've said they keep taking his pen, or they just do stuff, and eventually he lands into problems because of the people who sit behind him. First, he should learn how to communicate his feelings. Because if he keeps quiet, he'll keep suffering. And suffering on their behalf, because makosa si yake, ni wao wanamuweka kwa makosa. So teach him the I model that we've discussed. Let him be assertive in telling his friends off that I feel this when you do this, and I want you to do this. Because part of conflict resolution is being assertive. Assertiveness is one of the skills you need to resolve conflicts. So akuwe assertive, akuwe aggressive, not violent, but aggressive, assertive. Kwamba I feel bad when you take my pen, and then when I turn back, I land into problems, okay? So it makes me feel this and this when I'm punished because of you. And from today, I want you to stop doing it. You see, ametumia the I model, kuji-express. And you can train your friend to do that, and any other person going through problems, especially those who can't defend themselves. Unajua kuna watu wengine wapole sana, na kwa sababu ya upole wao wanakanyagiwa na wale watu ambao ni dominating. Remember we said dominating is part of one of the ways that some people use to resolve conflicts. Kwa sababu labda they are taller, they are more talkative, they are more bold, they are more aggressive, so they'll always have their way. And so they end up bullying those who can't speak for themselves. So you can also speak on behalf of the weak, you can speak on behalf of your friend, or better still, empower your friend to learn to speak for himself and stand on his feet and use the I model to express how it feels. If that fails, after he has warned the friends, and you have also helped in mediating between the two of them, now it's a matter that you can actually escalate to the teachers. So that especially the teacher misunderstands the whole situation. Because yake jirisa ni yao wamefanya nini, anaona wewe ni mjanja, unadhani wewe ni mjanja. So the teacher will never understand him unless somebody else intervenes. So you can also back up your friend na approach mwalimu mwambie it is this and this that happens. You are also mediating by doing so, so that the teachers don't think that this friend of yours is rude or arrogant or just lacks concentration in class. So to avoid that misunderstanding, you can mediate among them. Another question?
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Kituzi. There is also, Nick, you have another question before I give out this one?
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead and ask.
In school, there's sometimes you rub with each other's shoulder, yani inafika mahali mnaanza kugombezana, then you said to avoid if it is ni kitu ndogo, lakini saa uko hapo shule others wanaanza kusema ati wewe ni msoft, unawezaje achilia huyo mtu aende hivyo. Now sometimes you get compelled to answer back, and then it continues going until you two, if you are friends, you now become enemies.
Okay. So in a situation where you get pressure from your friends to be assertive, na unachochwa, kama nasema mnachochana, sio? Wanakuchocha, mimi siwezi ambiwa hivyo, kama mimi singeambiwa hivyo. So whenever you are pressured, always ask yourself, is this conflict worth it? Is this situation worth my fight? If the relationship between you and the person who's wronging you, for example, forget about the people telling you you need to speak up, forget about the people who are telling you you should do this or don't do that, and just focus on, is my relationship with this person who is hurting me, either by the way they're speaking at me or by the things they are doing to me, is my relationship with this person important? Is our relationship important? If it is important, then solve the conflict with the person. Then it is worthy approaching the person and using the I model to express how you feel about the things they do or say to you or about you. So you need to be assertive in that manner. Respectful, loving, but assertive. Hivi kwamba wewe usiwe ni wakukanyagiwa tu. Don't be aggressive in terms of violence, but aggressive in terms of being assertive. Because assertiveness is right, but aggression is wrong. Assertiveness ni wewe kujisimamia na kusema ukweli wako na feelings zako bila kunyamaza. Because the more you keep quiet, the more you hurt. And you see sometimes most of the things that escalate into big things, or like you're saying, unamnyamazia mpaka siku moja utalipuka na utasema kitu na mtakosana kabisa kabisa because of the way you've reacted. It's because you overlooked something small. So do not overlook small mistakes. Learn to be assertive by learning to speak up over small issues. When you can learn to speak up over small issues, then it becomes easier to speak when it's a big issue. And you also avoid these small issues from becoming a big issue. Because sometimes conflicts follow that graph. Remember the graph I gave you of escalation. So first inaanza na ndani yako, latent phase, where you're just thinking, nimwambie ama nisimwambie, nijitetee ama nisijitetee, nizushe ama nisizushe. So you're just talking to yourself. So you need to move from that phase and actually now communicate your feelings respectfully and lovingly with the other person, so that you avoid that phase where you get to the stalemate, where now you are so hurt that kama mbaya mbaya. So kama ni mkono katambe. So instead of getting there, you'd rather learn to speak about those small issues before they become big issues. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, very well. Maybe because of time, we can have this last question because of time. There's one asking here. The person says he or she was in a relationship in Form 2, and the parents realized, and this was solved, but it caused the parents to lose trust in him or her. How can he or she win back the trust from the parents?
Yes, that is a very common situation. Now, that is what we called in our graph before, the post-conflict zone, where you have resolved a conflict, but now you have to change certain things. So let me just go back very quickly to that graph in my presentation. This phase, now you have de-escalated. You're saying there was a relationship, it resulted into a conflict with your parents, mkaongea, mkamaliza, you promised maybe to change or something, and then you de-escalated, mkasonga chini, and now you've settled the dispute. But now there is this phase called post-conflict peace building. Now at post-conflict peace building, it means that whatever caused the conflict now should be avoided. In other words, this is the phase where we call for behavior change. Because even in Christianity, there is something called repentance. And repentance means, 1, you accept you're wrong. 2, you ask for forgiveness. And 3, you change your behavior. You turn from your ways. So this is now the behavioral part of repentance. So you repented. You said you are wrong. Your parents told you this is wrong, or maybe wakazusha, or whatever way they used, but you're saying that the conflict was resolved. But now it's about now winning trust. Now to win trust, that is a very uphill task. In other words, it is very easy to lose trust and also to gain it, but very difficult to regain it once you've lost it. So your behavior must change completely. You must not engage in a situation where you will make your parents feel like you never changed. You must not associate with the same people that your parents are telling you, we don't want to see you with this person. Because by so doing, what you are doing is you are unaweka nini, msumari kwa kidonda. Your parents, like I said, are human beings. So they get mad and they get hurt by your behavior or our behavior as their children. So whenever we apologize, yes, they forgive us and they tell us ni sawa. tumesikia, lakini usirudie tena. Now when they say usirudie tena, they actually mean usirudie tena. Why are they saying that? Because it will hurt them more if you repeat that mistake. Because sometimes we say kufanya kosa si kosa, kurudia kosa ndiyo kosa. Na kufanya kosa si kosa, kurudia kosa ni makosa. Because sasa umefanya makosa mawili, si moja. So you've broken trust, you need to regain that trust. So I'll advise you, please change your behavior. Whatever behavior patterns that they were seeing that made them to be suspicious of you, you need to change that behavior and be more transparent. Say where you're going, say with whom you are going with. If you must go somewhere, say who's visiting, even in the absence of your parents, what time they are coming in, and what time they are leaving, and why they are visiting, and so on and so forth. By being transparent with your parents, and also by keeping your promises, because sometimes your parents will allow you to go somewhere, visit a friend or so, and then they tell you by 5 ukue hapa. Wewe 5 bado uko huko, unakuja kwa nyumba 6:30, and then you start saying, oh, kulikuwa na traffic, oh, sijui mara nini ilifanyika. You start giving excuses. Now that will erode the little trust that you had started gaining. So to win trust, change your behavior and be transparent. Be like an open book, so that your parents know you inside out. You have no secrets with them. If you're relating with a boy, if you're a girl, and you have boys that are your friends, let your parents know the boys that are your friends. If you're a boy and you have girls that are your friends, let your parents know them. Wajue wazazi wao, wajue wanatoka wapi, mkionana wajue unaenda kuona fulani na mko wapi na mnafanya nini na kwa nini mnakutana. Be transparent and you'll win their trust. Immediately you lose transparency and you become secretive. So that you say you're going here, unajipata huko ama wanakupata huko. You say you'll come at this time, unakuja 10 minutes late, you lose trust. So gain trust by working towards it. Trust is earned. It is not just given. Okay. Any other question?
Wow, thank you so much, Bwana Kituzi. Thank you so much. That has been so informative, and we are informed. We are not actually as we came. We are walking away refreshed and well informed on matters parents relationship, on matters conflict resolution. And you brought it out very clearly. I don't even want to add anything because you just brought it out very well. And again, because of time, I wish we stop here. And just before we stop, Bwana Kituzi, there's someone asking if they can get notes. I don't know what you'll say about that.
Oh, yes. These notes, you can get them. You can get them. Just make sure that I have your email. You can send me your email address or phone number or WhatsApp me on that number that I'm sharing. That is 0787 52 62 32. And I'll send you the presentation so that you have the notes or even a PDF document of the notes. So you can always get this so that you refer to them. Just get in touch with any of these methods.
Thank you so much for being that generous. Just in a text coming, let me see. Oh my, Nixon, another question, and we are just finishing. Nixon is asking, may I ask one? My friend recently started having conflicts with his parents because of which day they are supposed to go to church, whether Sunday or Saturday. How can they compromise on it? Bwana Kituzi, briefly, you can just respond to this question, then we pray.
Yeah, I think in that situation, sometimes as children, it is always important to hear our parents' side of any conflict or any situation that they're insisting on. If the parents, for example, believe that it is right and it is they've been going to church on Sunday, for example. I don't know which among the two, whether it's the child or the parent who goes to church on Sunday or who goes on Saturday or wants to go on Saturday, but whatever the case may be, sometimes you have to avoid getting into a conflict that will sever the relationship between you and your parents. Look at the value your parents or your friends' parents are placing on the day of worship. If their day of worship is Sunday, and that's how they've raised this child, that they go to Sunday school, and maybe this child grows up and is exposed to unaenda high school, unapata kuna SDA, unapata sijui kuna other religions other than the religion you've grown up in. And so maybe you want to experiment at this age. It is important to remember that some things are not worth fighting for. You might have a different opinion, but always do what keeps the relationship going. If by going to church on Saturday and your parents are going to church on Sunday will sever or destroy the relationship between you and your parents, then that fight is not worth it. Because I've said, never win an argument at the expense of a relationship. It doesn't matter who's right there. If the parents say to end church Sunday, end your Sunday, you can have your own way. And you maybe when you grow up, you will experiment in your own house. Utakuwa unatoka kwako, uamue acha nienda hii SDA, nione iko vipi hii Saturday. Ama acha nione na Islam nao wanaamini nini. But for now, as long as you're living in your parents' roof, some conflicts, you avoid them. You follow their way. You compromise. Because you said it's give and take. You want their care, you want their love, you want their provision, then what are you giving? Give in. If they want to go to church on Saturday and the whole family goes on Saturday, you lose nothing by going to church on Saturday. You lose nothing. So give and take. That's my take.
Wow, thank you so much. Just to remind us, on Wednesday we shall have our open questions. So come with questions. We'll be able to discuss more and more. Patrick, please unmute. Patrick.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Please pray for us as we close.
Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for today, my Father. Thank you for the gift of life today. Lord, thank you for whatever we've gone through. Today, as we end this lesson, we pray that you may be with us. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, I do pray and believe. Amen.
And thank you so much, Mr. Kituzi, for that wonderful session, for the knowledge that you've actually given unto us. And we know that going forth, we shall not be the same, especially on how we relate with our parents and even how we solve conflicts. And thank you, everyone, for being on board. May God bless you so much. Thank you. Blessed evening.
Bye, everybody. God bless you.
Bye. Bless you
Bye-bye.
all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Sorry we've taken longer, but it was for our good. We can now get into the kitchen, prepare something. I know some of us here don't cook like Nixon. Ama Nixon, nimesema uongo?
I cook.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, Nikisha nasikia. Nikisha, are you the one cooking today? Ni wewe unapika leo? Ama duty ni ya nani? Duty ni ya nani leo?
Mom.
All right. Basi wewe enda kangojee sapa yaja. Moms will never disappoint. Aya, asanteni sana Nixon, Nikisha. Asante sana Bwana Kituzi.
Asante pia.
Nashukuru.
Alafu Ben.
Yes.
Ben.
Yes.
Did you record the session?
I saw the session was being recorded. It's still even being recorded. You can check now that you are the host. You can check down there on I think on more. You can stop the recording, or you make me the host. I do it.
Okay, let me just stop it.
Okay.